Here's a couple of other notes on the activity assignment. Several of you said A refers to the slope of the parabola. So, for example, one person says the plot reacts as it does because the value of A increases, the slope becomes steeper. As the value of A decreases, the slope also becomes steep. However, it becomes steep towards the negative direction. Now, I'm not sure what exactly you mean by that, because a parabola doesn't really have a single slope. In addition, c is the y-intercept of the function, therefore if c equals 1, the y-intercept is also equal to 1. But I shouldn't have put that part in there. What I'm trying to get at is referring to a as a slope. If you have a parabola, then the slope would be different at each point x, right? That's the definition of the derivative, is the slope at a given point x. It's the slope of the tangent line at that point x. So I'm not sure what you mean by a being the slope of the parabola. And you know, as for any point x, sometimes the slope is going to be negative and sometimes the slope is going to be positive. So what I'm doing when I'm asking you to make these exploratory comments and explanations is to practice thinking about the language that you use and the actual way that you phrase things. Here's another one. A is directly responsible for the slope, which determines how narrow or fat the parabola can be, and the sign changes relate directly to which direction it opens. But again, you know, if A is positive, yes, it's concave up, but sometimes the slope is negative and sometimes the slope is positive. So that's why I want you to think a little bit more specifically about what you mean by slope and why the sign changes relate to the direction. Another thing here is, as I said earlier, several of you said that when you change C, the origin moves up and down. One person wrote, this occurs because C is responsible for moving the origin up or down the y-axis. So why is that the case? And it's not just C, it's not just the vertex moving up and down, it's every point on the parabola. Because C is not attached to a variable x, I think what you mean there is it's an additive component rather than a multiplicative component. It's used to find the y-intercept of the graph. This is shown by the slider as the only thing that changes when C is changed is where the origin crosses the y-intercept. So again, that's not the case. It's not the only thing that changes. Every y value changes additively when C is changed. So what vocab can we focus on? So again, when you say the slope of the parabola, what you want to think about is not the slope as one value, but the slope at every point x, the slope of the tangent line at every point x. Some of you talked about the rate of change of parabola. To me, those seem like similar things, but again, the rate of change changes depending on where you are on the parabola. One of you wrote that the changes in C calls a vertical shift. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we are visualizing, where every y has a vertical shift, either in the positive or the negative direction. And when you change A, it's a vertical dilation. So the idea is to push a bit more to notice that both A and C values affect only the y values, but all of the y values. For any given x, the A value has a multiplicative effect. Okay, that is what we call this vertical dilation. We call it a dilation on the y value of x squared, while the C value has an additive effect causing the vertical shift. Now, I don't want you to hear this and say, oh, she was shopping for those words, or that's what I was supposed to say. That's not the case at all. What I'm showing you is that we can build on students' thinking to say, okay, start here. What were you thinking? How can we push you a little bit more in this direction? I certainly wasn't saying it's wrong if you didn't use these words. I'm saying that it makes a lot of sense, and this is a good way for technology to be a tool to support students' development of more language. All right, so this is the end of video 1. And now I'm going to ask you to watch video 2. And then we're going to come back and talk about the design features in video 3.